This webinar is proudly sponsored by Kontur. At Kontur, we provide advanced GPR systems and intelligent software that turn complex infrastructure and subsurface data into clear, actionable intelligence. Our integrated solutions help infrastructure professionals, engineers, and asset owners make confident decisions, minimize risks, boost operational efficiency, and complete projects on schedule and within budget. With roots going back to 2001, Kontur continues to deliver reliable subsurface insights that support safer, smarter, and more resilient communities worldwide. And that is our shameless plug for the day. Just a quick note. Here's some of our housekeeping topics before we dive in. For the best experience today, all audience microphones have been muted. You're welcome to submit any questions or comments through either the chat or the Q&A panel at any time. We'll collect them and address as many as possible during the dedicated audience Q&A segment at the end of the panel discussion. Feel free to let us know which panelists you'd like to hear from or if your question is directed to someone specific. Now, with that, let me introduce our distinguished panelists. Hey, with us, we have Michael Clifford, Jack Morrisroe, and Forrest Sim. Michael is the co-founder and principal of DGT Associates. That is a premier New England surveying and engineering firm, and as a civil engineer and licensed professional land surveyor with 40 years of experience, Mike has played a key role in major urban development and infrastructure projects across greater Boston, including historic harbor line mapping, working on historic Fenway Park, and working on Boston Central Artery and Ted Williams Tunnel projects, also known as the Big Dig. He's helped build DGT by integrating legacy firms while championing the adoption of modern technologies like 3D laser scanning for building information modeling and subsurface utility mapping. Forrest Sim is the founder and principal of Enhanced Scanning, headquartered in Lake Elsinore, California. Forrest founded the company in 2019 and has grown it into a trusted provider of utility locating, concrete scanning, and advanced subsurface imaging services. He is a recognized expert in ground penetrating radar applications, and he frequently speaks at industry events and also co-hosts the Concrete Conversations podcast, where he shares practical NDT knowledge with the field community. And then finally, we have Jack Morrisroe. Jack is the group manager for infrastructure and geophysics and engineering consulting services. In this role, he manages the GPR services teams and provides support to 100 offices and 3,200 people, which includes geotechnical, environmental, materials, and facility professionals. Mr. Morrisroe has wide-ranging experience as a GPR services consultant and has a resume of projects that spans 5 continents. Over his career, he has been involved with numerous large-scale forensic engineering evaluations, pavement and railroad evaluations, and utility locating projects. Originally from the UK, he's moved to the United States in 2015 and now lives in Mobile, Alabama. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Great. Now we have a rich set of topics to cover. I'll pose questions to both of you and feel free, or all of you, and feel free to build on each other's answers or share contrasting perspectives. So to get the conversation started, let's start out. How about we actually start out with a very quick poll question. Let's see. You price most of your survey work. And so everybody, feel free to, you in the audience can feel free to answer these polls, and we will post the results at the end of the survey. But to start out with our first question, let's look at the early days. Now, the window here. Now, Mike, Forrest, Jack, how did you each start and grow your businesses in the early days? What were the biggest challenges you faced when getting off the ground, and what strategies helped you move up from a startup to a sustainable operation? So let's see. Jack, how about we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So my perspective will be a little bit different. I am coming from the perspective of, rather than growing my own business, growing GPR services groups within existing companies. So I started off my career in about 2013. I was a recent geology grad, Started with Fugro over in the UK. Performed a lot of GPR data analysis on roadway projects. Bill, in fact, it's nice to have you on the call. One of my first projects was one of the ones you were involved with. We did a evaluation of 55,000 miles of roadway in California. So I spent several years just analyzing data. Spent some time in the trenches doing analysis and actually boots on the ground before moving into more of a hybrid seller doer type of role. Started as a sole proprietor, went freelance in the UK, specializing in geophysics for railroad infrastructure for a few years. And then before I ever realized that I'd be moving over here, I did a lot of projects in the United States before I realized I'd be marrying a girl from Mobile. But here I am now. So then I joined a couple of different firms. The first one being a smaller sized geotechnical firm, helped bring pavement evaluations and forensic investigations to their existing service offerings. And then after a few years, moved to ECS. And obviously ECS being a much larger firm, we've got around 3,000 people. It's growing a business, but in a different way. You've got to get buy-in from a lot of your internal clients. Your internal clients being other ECS engineers and geologists and environmental scientists. So a lot of our growth is in educating everybody. What we can do, what we can't do is actually more important than what we can do. We've got to be very cautious and build trust and not overpromise and deliver. And if you do that regularly enough, you start to get repeat clients, you start to get external clients, and people trust you and they come back to you. And so that's really how I've been able to grow the business at ECS.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Forrest, how about you?
So with enhanced scanning, I had the benefit of coming from an established company and then starting my own. So I had kind of an idea of how to do this from another company that had already done it well. I had put my fingerprint on it, and also I came from that company it was a GPRS, and they were a large company. They're a larger company today. And there were many things that I tried to do that I just couldn't, because they were doing these things when they had already scaled. And so it was, and then I had many friends in other companies, some friends who had started their own, friends who were working at other large locating, scanning companies. And some things translated perfectly over to my tiny, just Forrest doing business, and other things were needed some modification, and others I just had to throw out, and others I did not want to throw out until eventually, after a long time, like months, and in one case a year, I just held on to a way of structuring my business that was not working. I just really wanted it to, and to my, not my financial ruin, but to my, financial detriment, I held on to some things that just weren't working. That's, it's all the hindsight stuff. So in hindsight, I wish I had been a little bit more realistic about the things that you can do as a tiny business owner with no money or a tiny bit of money, and the things that just need to stay on the shelf of ideas that I want to, once I reach this threshold, I'm going to take that idea off the shelf and implement it. And there were a lot of things that I just had to, that I was trying to fit in my truck or in my backpack, whatever metaphorical container you want to use. There were a lot of things I tried to fit in my metaphorical container of my business that just didn't fit when I was really small. And there's some of those things that are still on a shelf because they just don't fit in my business right now. So that was really important. I really wish that I had figured that out sooner, that I don't, just like when you first graduate school and get your first job, the first thing you do is you don't go and try to buy all the stuff that your parents have, like buy a nice car and a nice house and all the things that they have, because your parents have been doing this for a few decades and they're much farther down the line than you, and you need to wait. You need to bide your time. You need to take the little steps that are going to get you up to that place where you can afford to buy the nice house that you see your parents have. And I wanted to just jump to that place of the perfect iteration of my business that I've always wanted to have. And I wanted to do that, day one or day two at the most. And there's just a lot of stuff that I had to decide I wasn't ready for. So that was one thing that I'm glad that I eventually came to realize. I think that a lot of people don't realize that they need to give up on some things, either give up on them entirely or just postpone them, stick them on the shelf. Sometimes they have to go in the trash can, but just stick them on the shelf with a lot of stuff. And people who don't understand how to do that, I think a lot of those people go out of business because they just doggedly stick to. I mean, I get the idea of sticking to your dreams and the version of your business that you've always wanted to have, but sometimes it takes a long time to achieve that dream, and along the way you realize, oh, actually that dream was stupid. I actually don't care about that dream nearly as much as I thought I did, and there's no way of knowing that. And if if you're not taking all these little steps to just figure it out along the way. So boy, I don't know if I answered your question.
That was free-ranging question. Very good. But no, good answer. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. And Michael, how about you?
So I'd like to say that I struggled mightily in the early days, but I kind of didn't. I had some advantages fell my way business-wise. Before I started DGT with my two partners, I had worked for 10 plus years, 12 years, I guess, in private industry in surveying in Boston. Places where I got a very wide range of experience, construction, high-rise layout, Alta surveys, conventional survey, utility mapping at the level C level. We didn't call it that then, but a lot of that, development surveys, so a broad range. The latter part of that experience, which I'll just say that having that broad experience, I think, is the best thing you could do early in a career. It's not to be surprised after that when things are thrown at you. The latter part of that pre-ownership career was on what we call the Big Dig in Boston, our Central Artery Tunnel. Very, $15 billion or 20 billion, or I forget what it was. A very large project that dominated the city. And more importantly, that's where I met my two partners, who are very entrepreneurial types, as I was not. I had never planned to own a business, but Bob Staples, land surveyor, similar experience to me, and John Silveri, who's no longer with us, sadly, but he had a GIS background. And so I had those two people, really pushing me so I could concentrate on the fun part, which is client survey and projects, hiring people. The another advantage was that that was again thrown at me was the economy was roaring at the time. This is mid to late '90s in Boston. Spinoff from the Big Dig and other public works, just the economy. So we had a lot of work in all different sectors, including a couple years into it, the Big Dig actually put survey work out for bid, and we got on that train and rolled that for a bit. So subsequent to that, we just kind of rode the waves of the economy, largely Greater Boston's, which we've had some slow periods, but the slow periods haven't lasted very long. So I guess I'm giving credit to everybody but myself for building this up. And just a quick detour into we've always been involved with SUE work, underground utilities. It began with the Big Dig project, which had a campaign and a built-in component of SUE. So that was early days. And later on in our business, we saw that that's something we could really grow in the past decade or so. And we have grown it because of the need for it. So that's where I am right now.
Okay, great. No, excellent. Thank you very much. Before we go to our next question, we're going to go start our next poll question. What share of your revenue is recurring versus one-off project work? So for those of you in the audience that are involved in that, feel free to participate. We'd like to hear about what you people are working on. So, and into our moving on to our second question. Um, Jack, I'm not sure you might be able to answer this, but for the other two members of the panel, starting off with you with your own companies, as your companies developed, how did your needs and problems change over time? Uh, what surprised you most about scaling up from essentially working out of your garage to managing larger teams and more complex projects? I think, Jack, the second half of that question you probably could answer, but Michael, why don't we start with you on this one?
Oh boy, I was hoping the other guys would answer so I could feed off them. Uh, Thought you have a ready answer, but I'm not going to say there was no surprises in running a business. As I alluded to, I was never an entrepreneurial type. I just wanted to work for somebody and go home. And I think the biggest surprise is that even with the responsibility, the stress, and fundraising and making payroll, the big surprise was that it's not that bad being the boss, as opposed to how should I put this? Having somebody else as the boss that you don't totally respect. Uh, I'm not saying I'm surprised how easy it has been, but I'm surprised at that it hasn't been, a crushingly difficult thing to do to actually run and maintain a business.
Hmm, very good. Um, Jack, you can probably answer the second part of that question. As you've moved up in your career, going from basically being told what to do to managing larger teams and complex projects, any observations or surprises from that experience?
I suppose my observation would be that the completing the work is usually not the most difficult part. It's maintaining a consistent workflow while hiring, deciding when to hire, and of course, that's not a decision you should take lightly. We're all in the consulting industry, and so if there's no work, we can't staff our people. So we try to hire when we need to, and we don't have excess staff. One of the other difficult things, I think, going from being a kind of a project manager and also field technician, really understanding what needs to be done on site and doing it myself was an awful lot easier than training people to do it. You kind of want to, at least in my case, I kind of want to micromanage, and I'm trying to get better at that. But you want to have involvement in all projects. But the difficult part is really stepping back, training your staff adequately so that they can make the decisions that hopefully you would also make on site, identify the problems before they become problems, and there will be some teething pains as you go through that. You can hire great people, you can hire experienced people, but you can't be on every site. And as you scale, as you get to the point where you've got more teams than you can visit on site every day, then there will be some difficulties that come with that. So I guess that would be my biggest observation.
Wow, great. And Forrest, let's finish up with you.
The what surprised me the most, I hope many people on this, the attendees and stuff are familiar with the book, The E-Myth. The E-Myth is a phenomenal book that I think anyone in small business or even just running a division of a company should read and then study. So E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited. I probably listened to E-Myth, I don't know, maybe 24 times over the years, and that book helped me considerably to be surprised to have fewer surprises. But so that book helped me a ton. E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited. I think everybody should read that. Those two books. But the thing that really surprised me the most is, I suppose, how vital an accountant is for my work. I mean, I was naive. Anything that involves dollar signs, is not my strong point. I'm good at doing the technical work. I'm good at the sales. I'm good at staying up on latest technologies. I'm good at some things, like anybody is. But man, managing cash flow, and P&Ls and balance sheets and other awful things like that. Ugh, there are people who like looking at that stuff, and they're all, that bless them, because I can hire them to do it for me. But that's the thing. I had to hire them to do that stuff for me. It's just so much more complicated than I ever thought this would be. I thought this was going to be, I could get, just use a calculator, maybe even a simple calculator that just had a plus and minus button and an equals button, and then maybe not even all 10 of the numbers, right? Just some of the numbers. And that would be enough for me to be able to do the finances for my business. And I was dead wrong. So I had somebody doing my bookkeeping and accounting in the beginning. It was kind of a favor. That was a huge mistake. I would recommend nobody do that, the whole favor thing, because then you're never a priority. You're just something that somebody will do a little bit here and there and in the side. And what I discovered years later is that when you have somebody doing your books and your accounting as a favor, then they also don't get, they don't really put any, they don't prioritize you, and they don't put any effort into making sure that things are being built the right way. And so even today, I'm still untying some knots that were tied because, is Forrest Business going to be around long enough to worry about X, Y, or Z? Probably not. All right, let's just do this real quick and dirty. And so having a great accountant and a great bookkeeper was something that I didn't realize was so important, and also took time to find. I don't know the answer for how to find a good bookkeeper and accountant. The way that I did it is by finding bad bookkeepers and accountants, and then less bad and less bad. And so finally now I have a fantastic accountant and and an amazing bookkeeper. Actually, my bookkeeper is like really good looking too, which is a huge plus. So that's awesome. She's also my wife. So, I think that the accounting side, all things concerning the numbers and dollar signs and other annoying stuff like that, I was surprised with how bad I am at that, and how much I needed somebody to help me, and then how hard it was to find somebody who could give me the help that I needed. So, nobody was going to hire me to help them with their books in the first place, before this call, but definitely not after that comment.
Well, we'll definitely keep that in mind, and it's good to have your a member of the family as your accountant too, so they have a vested interest as well in making sure the books are balanced.
Actually, it's phenomenal, because it just having her eye on this too, and she and I both know our personal finances, and now she and I both know the business finances, and it's actually
Excellent.
extremely helpful. It's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Great. Excellent. Thank you guys for all those answers. Before we go to our next topic, let's do our next poll. So for those of you in the audience, what is your biggest business challenge right now? Feel free to participate. Let us know what's going on there, and we'll look forward to seeing your answers. Now, talking about business challenges, let's talk about people and talent. Uh, Gentlemen, so hiring and training new employees and managing employee churn is pretty much a constant issue in any industry. So for those of you who are actually working with this, you have your people that you manage, you have to hire, you have to develop your own talent. What approaches have you found that has been effective for recruiting, training, and retaining good people? And especially, do you have any lessons from mistakes you've made along the way? And Jack, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, addressing the hiring question, I found that it's useful to cast a very wide net. There is no one type of graduate or person who is well suited for GPR as a service provider. I have had success and I've had failure with all kinds of people, whether they are graduate engineers, either structural mechanical, civil, but all of them can be great graduate people to bring onto the team. We also use a combination of geologists, archaeologists, GIS, and kind of mapping staff, and a lot of the time, the best employees are not even the graduates; they're the folks that have got some in the field experience. So we in the United States, we've got a system called the One Call. It's a dial before you dig type of utility locating services, and they are not always the best locating. That's not the best place to hire from. But if you find the person with the right work ethic, they can be excellent. I do try to hire people, especially in our utilities divisions, people who have knowledge as to how infrastructure, and especially utilities, are designed and built. If you've got someone who has been actively performing construction inspections for a contractor, that is an excellent starting place. They might not know much about utility locating, but that's a basis that you can train. And I found that to be quite successful. With regard to employee churn, one of the benefits of being with a big firm is that we've got a pretty standardized bonus structure and rewards for our employees. We've got an employee stock ownership plan, an ESOP for everyone after 1 year of being with the company. It's really important to me that our staff have some buy-in. They have some ownership as to the success of the group, and they have some pride in making sure that it's profitable and it grows, and that they can further their careers with that. We also have, I mentioned on the profit sharing side of things, we are majority employee owned, and we have a bonus structure for our staff that ranges anywhere from 10 to 20% of their base salary on the kind of the junior project manager level to actually some quite significant bonuses if all of the criteria, both the growth and the profit, are hit. And so there are opportunities for you to be an employee, grow your own career, and also make some good money doing it. And it's important that you show that your staff that there is a career path ahead. You're not just a utility locator. You are actually growing, and you could have an ownership in the business and teams underneath you if you do well, and everything like that. So I think getting buy-in from your staff is the biggest takeaway when it comes to reducing the churn and the turnover.
Excellent. And Forrest, how about you? I think maybe this might be a good question to ask you in particular. What any mistakes that you've made in hiring along the way that have provided you a valuable lesson? This might be an interesting one.
That'd be
You're
my answer
muted.
too.
Oh, there we go. Got it.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
There we go.
That's okay. I had some very bad ideas I started saying, so now I can get in here.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I have made some hiring mistakes, but in hindsight, I have thought about it a lot. I don't know if I could have foreseen those. I think to a degree, I mean, when you're being interviewed, you're always trying to put on your best face and trying to kind of glaze over or even completely hide the things that you don't want that employer to see, your weaknesses. And whenever you're interviewing somebody, you're trying to sift through the fluff and find out, okay, where is this going to be bad? Those are just conflicting, agendas there, conflicting intentions. So that's just hard. The thing that I did do because it was this experience that taught me that I needed to train, give some more training to some my guys. I had a guy who was brand new hired, and he was riding along with another guy who who I'd had for a little while, and this new hire asked his trainer how much he was getting paid, and his trainer told him, and the trainer was getting paid more than this new hire was, and he didn't like that, and he quit a couple days later because he thought that he should be getting paid as much or more than this other guy. And that to me seems intuitively obvious that you don't talk to your coworkers about how much you make, because maybe you were better at negotiating, maybe you got something in your past that your boss finds more valuable, or vice versa. And that's just kind of one of those things where ignorance might actually be way more blissful. And that was just a case of me needing to apparently explain that please don't talk to anybody else about what I pay you. That's between you and me. And it's just going to cause problems. You're not going to like it, or your coworker's not going to like it. Guaranteed somebody's not going to like it.
Right.
And I don't know that I've had problems with hiring, but that was one of the things that surprised me, that in terms of bringing on new people, like, hey, everybody, let's just have some boundaries again around our conversations we have while we're in the truck driving to a job.
Yeah, always good advice. Michael, how about you? Any approaches that you found particularly effective for recruiting and retaining and developing good talent?
Well, I think so. I mean, something that I heard early on is that people like an interesting project or a series of interesting projects to work on. Sometimes to the point where it's a balance between more money and more interesting work to do. And that's how I mentioned the first part of my career. I was not a business owner, but I did very much enjoy the variety of work and the challenge of interesting high level stuff, going to places in my profession other people may not see. And I'd say that that's been true. We've got people that have been with us since the very early days. We're talking 27 years now. I hate to say it's been that long, but that's a good thing. So you bringing people in, and also we've always had an attitude, business-wise, as sort of a family business, in that my owners, my partners, and myself had young families when we started out. So we didn't work weekends. Well, we came into the office on a Saturday, did stuff at home. This is before the real internet, so not a lot of computer work. There was no work from home. And that kind of carried through. We always avoided projects with heavy overtime. We never did pipeline work, for instance, where people are traveling up to the North Country, staying in motels. So I think that's been part of it. And I think maybe we were ahead of our time with the current generation. You won't hear me talking too much about old guys like me. Everything was great back then versus the young generation. But the young people have figured out that what they call the work-life balance, that they're not going to work 80 hours a week. They're not going to kill themselves for a job. But I think we've hit that as well since the beginning, and that's carried through, where people seem to be content working with us for those reasons. They like the things they're working on, and the people around them, of course. And also, we're not pushing people to the edge for max profit.
Yeah. That's pretty timely. I think everybody who is currently in the business of hiring and developing talent are seeing that in the industry as well. It's really finding a work-life balance with employees is pretty critical for maintaining a happy and productive workforce. So thank you
Bill,
for that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could I share something else on this topic that is
Absolutely.
I feel like we're having too nice of a conversation, so I wanted to put something out there just to really just ruffle some feathers. I am close friends with my employees, and I've had other friends who have much more experience in business than me, who have advised me to not become friends with my employees. Don't become friends with the people you manage, because you might have to lay them off one day. You might have to tell them, hey, you're doing a bad job. And that can get awkward. And that is, I've had to do both of those things. I've had to tell employees who are my close friends, our wives are close friends, our kids are friends, and I've had to tell employees before that, hey, you're doing a bad job with this. Hey, you're still doing a bad job with this. We need to talk about this so that, I can't keep having you on at the company if you're doing a bad job like this. I had to lay a friend off, and his wife was friends with my wife. Our kids knew each other. That was not pleasant, but I also I I feel a strong sense of loyalty to them, and I think that there's a fairly strong sense of loyalty to me. Their first loyalty is their families. My first loyalty is my family. But because I know them, I understand what motivates them. And for everyone, for every person I've ever hired, it's not always been money. Sometimes it's time off. Sometimes they don't care too much about making more money. They just care about, like, look, I just want to be able to have my weekends. I want to be able to plan on what time I can go to my son's t-ball game. And I wouldn't know those things if I didn't have a good relationship with them. So I'm very close with everybody that I've ever hired. I've become close friends with them, and that makes me better able to understand how to motivate them, and also where their boundaries are. But we have a very clear, I'm the boss and I'm telling you what to do. I never say I'm the boss and I'm telling you what to do, because I don't have to do that, because we just talk. We just understand how to communicate well with each other. So I believe strongly for me, becoming close friends with my employees. But I understand that not everybody was wired that way to become close friends with anybody at work. So if you have to force it, that doesn't work. But for me, it feels way more natural to be close friends with an employee than it does to. It would feel awful to have a company where I hired some guys and I don't even know who they are, and that would feel awful for me. So I don't think that the don't become friends with the people you manage is universally applicable. I guess I'd say that that's it depends one. But for me, it's done very good things for my retention, because my employees like me. We get along. I know when their birthdays are. I call them on their birthdays, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it's been my own experience too has been, when you have people with you, especially a long time, you have good interpersonal relationships with people. And then some of the hardest parts now become when you now have to discipline and up to even, terminating employees. It's been, I found, was some of the
Yeah.
the hardest things I've ever had to do was to pull somebody into the office and say, here's a problem that we have, and I need to point this out to you, and you need to address it. And then when a point where you have an employee that, despite multiple times of bringing them into an office and having this conversation, you say, we are now at the point where we have to part ways. And that's really a tough part of managing any kind of business, is making sure that you're getting what you can out of your employees. And fortunately, most of the time, when you have technical fields like this, you typically have very motivated employees who are interested in doing a good job because they like what they're doing, or they're interested in their particular job. So, but
Yeah.
good input, everybody. Um, so we'll finish out this topic with our final poll question of the day. Now, how fast is your equipment cycle, or your equipment turning over? What is your reinvestment cycle? And that'll lead us into our next topic, which is the technology and business impact. Um, Changing technology brings both opportunities and challenges. Uh, from your perspectives, how have advancements in tools like GPR, laser scanning, and software applications affected the actual running of your businesses, um, especially around things like capital costs, cash flow, training, and return on investment? Uh, what advice would you give to firms who are considering major tech investments? Um, Michael, how about we start with you?
Well, the only advice that I can think I'd give is don't buy the shiny toy just because it's the shiny new toy. Not everything. We look carefully, and surveying, mapping, subsurface work. You've got to keep up with technology. It's the name of the game. And in my career, I'm not saying I've seen 20-person field crews with the chuck wagon, but 3-man crews were not too unusual. 2-man crews were very common, and now well, we're mostly 2-person crews because of the nature of our work. But there's so much more productivity because of the equipment. So yeah, I'm not a luddite on that score. And then it brings us into markets we might not be in. 3D laser scanning has been steady all along for a couple of decades now. And now, I can't say enough about the Kontur system that we have, what it means for our, underground data collection. But yeah, I guess I'll bring up one topic, which is we've never gone into mobile scanning, lidar scanning, mobile, because that's not our market. We don't work for all the DOTs. We work for 2 DOTs in New England, but that work doesn't come up. So we don't want to get into spending money on anything that we're pretty sure we're not gonna have the work based on the fact that nobody's asking us to do that work. Uh, and the next thing, AI is everybody's talking about AI. It hasn't hit us yet here at DGT, but uh, it can't be avoided from what I know about it. It is, I think, pretty soon going to have capabilities to do data detection and extraction that would jump us to another level. Uh, and and other things, yeah, searching through our own in-house records and archives to find useful data and plans and so forth. I think AI is the next step for that. So yeah, my advice is just anybody's advice, I guess, is just be careful, do a study on it. Don't overstudy, right? You don't want to miss the market or the next project, you know, uh, because you're taking time making a decision about jumping into technology. Um, that's my take on that.
Yeah, excellent. And thank you for the shameless plug for Contour products, for all the participants here. Those are always welcome. So, feel free to throw those in whenever you can. Um, Jack, how about you?
Yeah. So I would say that the GPR equipment industry has changed quite a bit over the past 10, 15 years that I've been in it. The equipment costs are a lot lower. We're actually charging less on our daily equipment fees on the dollar amount now than we did 10 years ago. So there were less companies that were actually working in the industry than back then. Now, the blessing and a curse. There are a lot more competitors and a lot more groups that have started GPR firms, and GPR as a service is much better understood by the general public and by our clients, which is great. I feel like a lot of the time there's less of education that's needed for our clients. We're not having to go in and say, let's talk about GPR. It's a brand new technology. Instead, we're going in and we're saying GPR has been around for a while. It's used on probably the majority of construction projects out there in the United States, and this is what we're doing to separate ourselves from everybody else. We've got field crews that can go out and do the pushcart GPR. But the biggest sell to me in investing in the multi-channel GPR system that we got, also the Kontur, was the safety improvement. There were so many times over the I guess, especially in the early part of my career, heavily working in the transportation industry, where we would be in lane closures. We'd be on the side of the road in the middle of the night, and cars would hit the barricades, hit the cones, and send them flying right next to us. The multi-channel system that we got does allow us to change how we look at large projects, and has improved the safety of some of the projects that we work. So that's certainly a big one for me. Less lane closures, less exposure to traffic, and that's something that really wasn't available, not commercially 10, 15 years ago.
Excellent. Yeah. Um, very good. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. And Forrest, any observations on how technology is affecting the business side?
did that again with my mic. It's like what Jack was saying. There's a blessing and a curse that there are more competitors today because what we do in my company is becoming easier, cheaper, and more intuitive, and so that makes it easier to hire somebody, or excuse me, easier to train somebody after they're hired. But then it also, and more of my customers know what these services are and understand the value of them. But we also have more competitors, and that in the U.S. this is so there are. My company, we're not professional land surveyors, and we're also not an SUE firm. Like DGT. These guys are. We've done a couple projects partnering with DGT. They're fantastic to work with. I love working with those guys, and they have they have licensed surveyors, civil engineers. They're a full SUE firm, and we are not. We're a step below that. We are private utility locator. We do concrete scanning. We do a number of these services, and there's a remarkably low, even in California, the place of regulation. There's very, very little regulation surrounding the use of this type of equipment. In fact, you can just get a business license and go out and start doing it. You don't even need a contractor's license. You just get a business license, buy a website and a phone number, and go out and do it. And that's nice. I'm all for removing barriers to entry to a degree. That also means that guys who really don't know what they're doing at all can come in and start acting like they know what they're doing. And they might know a couple of things that they could do with a tool, with a GPR antenna or something. They can do a couple of things, but they don't have the depth of training or any experience really to show them how to handle the difficult projects. You never know when you put a GPR antenna on the ground or wave a wand over the ground, if it's you don't really know if it's going to be a really easy project or if it's actually going to turn into a really complicated one. Projects that look very simple, you can get on the ground and realize that, oh, these are really complicated soil conditions or what have you, any number of a dozen different things that could turn and seemingly.
Oh, Forrest, I think we lost your connection. Are you still there? Okay. So we might have a little technical glitch with Forrest, so let's see if we can get him back online. In the meantime, Michael, do you have anything that you'd want to offer on this topic? Especially anything about how about return on investment for firms who are considering major technology acquisitions?
Well, sure. I mean, number one, maybe tacking on to what I said earlier, is make sure that you're actually going to be using the equipment, the technology, whether it's hardware or software. Make sure that it's something that fits within the skill set of people you have. Otherwise, there's an added cost, which is bringing on new people, to run the technology and so forth. Don't be shy about it. Without new technology, it changes all the time. Just a small example there, a little anecdote. We've got a basement space that we're clearing out. We don't want to pay rent anymore on it, and we just cleaned out all this physical hardware. We have bought out a few survey companies over the years, and it was a veritable museum of broken down, lost toys surveying equipment, going back literally to aerial cameras. So we took a picture of it, and then we gave it to a guy who's going to try to sell it, has been trying to sell it on eBay to, limited success. But there's, some of these are the attractive dumpy levels and transits that you can put in the window of a condominium. But, you've got a 1990s era Sokia total station with some wires hanging out of it. And that's what I'm getting to, is this more recent equipment, which I never learned to read it and to run it, right? Because I was using simpler equipment. back in the 80s when I was really in the field, early 90s. Even that stuff is outdated. You can't even get parts for it, and nobody, no licensed shop is going to repair it for you. So it's built in that you have to keep investing in equipment. Even the same
Mhm.
forms of equipment have to be updated.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, thank you all. The great participation on that. I'll remind the audience we've got the Q&A panel is open, so feel free to submit your questions as we wrap up. So we'll go with our final topic to the panelists here, and let's talk about how we deal with clients and contracts. This is a sensitive topic, so feel free to be as diplomatic as you can on this one. But again, let's talk about client management. How do you handle things like scope creep? What are your strategies for clear contracting and pricing communication? And then finally, have you ever had to fire a client, and what led to that decision? Forrest, let's go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah, can you hear and see me okay now?
We got you now.
Okay, great. Sorry, I had 5 other YouTube videos playing in the background at the same time that I was watching while we were doing this, so I just turned those off, so we should be good now.
Okay.
Yeah. Scope creep. Yeah, scope creep is bad. The worst thing that a field technician can hear are the words "while you're here," and ... That hey, while you're here, just go do that little piece over here. While you're here, can you scan this? Hey, while you're here, can you help me do some weeding in the garden? You know, it's the while you're here's that are really it's like nails on a chalkboard. I had a friend who he was working for a company that had a 2-hour minimum, and he went out and did this job, and he got the work done in an hour and a half, the work that they agreed upon with the customer. And so he went in, told the customer, hey, I'm all done here, sign this, and I'll be off. And he said, okay, sounds good, there's the broom, I want you to go out and start sweeping the parking lot because I paid for you to be out here for 2 hours. And my friend refused. But it's that type of thing that's just some miscommunication. I'm like, no, we have a 2-hour minimum, but that just tells you when my time starts getting more expensive. That doesn't guarantee you 2 hours of my time. That guarantees me that I'm going to do your project, and if I tell you I can do it within that 2-hour minimum, I will. I might have 20 minutes left, I might have 3 minutes left, I might have an hour and a half left. But yeah, the scope creep, in my experience, scope creep is much more likely to happen the smaller the job you're on. If you're on a little half day or couple hour project, that's when a contractor or heavens, we do work for residential homeowners sometimes, and that's when homeowners want to get a discount all the time because it doesn't take nearly as long. And usually we don't give any kind of a discount to homeowners because they also want to say like, hey, tell me all about your equipment. That's GPR. That's amazing. I didn't hear anything. I thought this would be really loud. Oh, it has wheels. Look at the color of that thing. That's amazing. And it ends up taking just as much time as going and working for a contract. So anyway, in my opinion, or in my experience rather, scope creep is a bigger problem with smaller projects, and it's less of a problem with bigger projects. Now,
Right.
I've worked with DGT on a couple of projects, and I've talked with some of their guys before. And DGT, as I understand, they don't take small projects. They don't mess with this little stuff. They just do large and really cool projects. And one day I'll be a DGT, but I'm not a DGT today. So I'll just take the money from whoever wants to give it to me. And I'm going to guess, I'll be interested to hear what Michael has to say here, but I'm going to guess I deal with scope creep problems a lot more than Michael, because I take on like these little tiny projects.
Right. Excellent. And thank you for the great lead into Michael. Okay, Michael, what do you have to say on that?
Well, thanks for us for the plug and telling people we're a big mega company. But honestly, we take small projects on the survey side of the house.
Ah,
It's part of being a licensed land surveyor. You get people calling who are fighting with the neighbor over a driveway to put in an addition on the house, and it's kind of a dirty secret in land surveying that the licensing is based on boundary abilities to do boundary survey. Your quality of your work on boundary survey, not construction, not precise machine layout, not subsurface utility location, boundary work. So you can't avoid that. So we do small projects on occasion. We price it, put a reasonable price on it. There's no discount for residential work. As I've always said, to survey, 5,000 square foot lot, residential lot, is about as much work as surveying the lot, a 20-story building in downtown Boston. It's the same process, the same records, and so forth. Maybe worse records and monuments. Anyways, long story short, uh, with the small projects, large projects, I come from a background in a training where everything that could have a dollar sign attached is documented. Client calls on the phone. The old days they called on the telephone, and we'd actually get out a yellow legal pad and write down who called, what time, what they want, what I said to them, and so forth. So that's more an email exchange now. I always make sure there's a minimally an email exchange. If somebody says, "Okay, we don't want you to do this, but we want you to do this," and I typically reply back, and other people in the organization know this, to reply back, okay, basically saying, "Okay, you said this, and now here it is in writing." Uh, if you don't agree with what you said, just reply back that you didn't say that. So it's a constant battle. A lot of my time is spent on reviewing the budgets and the billing. And honestly, one way we try to keep the pieces, well, it's a mixture of pricing. I won't give all the how all the sausage is made here, but if it's a reasonably controlled site, limited scope, we do our best to do a lump sum. Takes all the guesswork out of it. And we know if we give construction work in that industry, it's time and materials hourly without an estimate, right? Unless they really twist our arm, we're not even giving estimates. We're at the mercy of somebody else's schedule. The big projects, particularly in our underground mapping, tend to be almost a lump sum in spirit, but it's we come up with an estimate, and we treat that as a not to exceed. Uh, and and then that means we've got to watch the scope, make sure it's not being changed by the client, or document if it is. And then we go into, okay, here's an addendum, either an informal email, not verbal email with additional cost, or a formal thing if that's client's process. Uh, and then, of course, we've had this from a couple of our key clients, larger clients, pointing out that this has been going on for a few years, that we always seem to just hit the estimate, and that we don't come in under the estimate. One client kept screaming about, "I want a not to exceed. Give me a not to exceed." And I'm not a patient person. Sometimes, as I get on in my career, I get a little bit cranky. Uh, and finally, I said to this one client, I didn't say, "What do you think not to exceed means, stupid?" I said, "Well, we're exceeding the work, right? But we're not exceeding what we're billing you." And another large client said that to me recently. These are between utility and agency and transportation people. And I finally I just started telling these people, after developing a relationship, some had pre-developed relationships up with me, that look, whenever we do a project, we don't know what it's going to cost. We don't know what it's going to cost until we're done. We put our best estimate on it. And I tell them that, we pretty much always, on the larger projects, especially utility mapping, we almost always go over the budget. And I say to them that, look, we just keep digging. We've got a project that's finished, it's half done. And then we find some more information that the city, the town didn't give to us. The utility company didn't give this to us. We found in our own files, or somebody sent it to us. So we're always adding the value. And, I don't tell them that. Well, maybe I do tell them. Well, that's to my benefit too as a business, DGT, because, well, we're collecting this information and we're going to use that on the next project for somebody else. So scope creep, yeah, it's a real thing. It's constant. It never goes away. It's just a matter of constant argument, uh,
Mhm.
but also documentation to back it up.
Mhm. Excellent. And it helps to have those arguments with a South Boston accent, correct?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Pet peeve. If my wiseacre response to that, like Boston people ask me where you're from. I'm from here. The English language landed in Massachusetts. Okay, you guys have the accent.
Oh, excellent. Great response.
I just want to
Jack,
get that recorded.
perfect. Jack, how
Yeah,
about you close this out for us?
yeah. To me, scope creep can be most effectively managed at the proposal stage. You want to be detailed in your proposal. You want to include as much information as you can on the limits of your investigation in a utility locate, especially where you're going to be locating, where you're not, if you're going to be doing test holes, if you're not. The more information you can include in your proposal, the less, I guess, room a client has on the back end to say, "Hey, will you go and do this?" And the better you document everything, the better. You can include verbiage. It might just be boilerplate verbiage in your proposal, but things like night shift premiums, weekend work premiums. There are lots of times that we submit a proposal, especially to a contractor, maybe in like a high rise, and then they come back and they say, "Oh yeah, we've awarded the work, we've sent you the PO, you're good to go. Oh, by the way, this needs to be done tonight, not in the day." And we do have some different language, and so the more that you can document. And the more options that you can include for, if there are additional meetings that are going to be required, they're going to be at this hourly rate for our principals or for our engineers or field crews. The better you can protect yourself at the proposal stage, the less room there is for scope creep. And then also, like Michael said, we heavily work in the lump sum projects when there are a lot of knowns. But for anything with a lot of unknowns, we tend to do time and materials type of or cost plus type of contracting. And some of our clients require that. We've got folks that require lump sum, especially if the project's being funded by grant money, where there isn't an unlimited pool of money for the owner to pull from. Or if it's an agency, they are required to a lot of the time give you a kind of a cost plus scope where you can only build what you do, and the profit is fixed. You get maybe a 12% fixed profit on labor, but everything else, all your other direct costs are passed through. So understanding the contract, doing contract review and making sure you're not signing up for something you don't need to be is very important. And if there's a bad contract, the last thing I'll say is don't be afraid to walk away from work. There will always be another project, but you don't want to get stuck on a bad project with a bad contract. It can really come and turn around and bite you in the backside.
Excellent advice. Thank you all for that. So we appreciate all the input from everybody. We've gone a few minutes over, but we actually do have a couple of questions, and I will throw that out to the panel in general. Feel free to pipe in and give your advice. Question number one: we are land surveyors that obtain some geophysical equipment. How do we scale past small void scanning projects?
I can provide an answer to this one.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, don't try to do it all. Don't pursue the big prime contracts with the agencies or the owners, the $1 million plus contracts. Build strategic partnerships, teams with folks that are already in the industry. We, as a mostly a geotechnical and geophysics consultant, we don't perform land surveying in-house. We don't have licensed land surveyors on our team. But we have a large bank of surveyors wherever the project is across the country that we partner with. We could make more money, to be honest with you, if we tried to do it all. But a lot of the time, those strategic partnerships allow small firms to get the resume that they need to start responding to RFQs, and it benefits us because we can more accurately project workload if we have slightly smaller tasks instead of just big hitters that start and then stop.
Excellent. Great. Um, and the final one, this is more of a comment than a question, but I'll throw it out to the panel and see your confirmation and see if it's something that you've observed as well. And it's, I think GPR has reached a point where it is due diligence. On projects related to sinkholes or voids, someone will eventually ask if GPR has been done. So I often propose it, even though it may have a lot of limitations at a site. Is that something you've also observed?
I don't think that bringing more tools to a site has ever bit me in the backside. I've never regretted bringing more instruments to a site to have redundancy of readings, and so I don't. And GPR is so easy to mobilize and deploy. It's so I would I don't know that I'd say that it's the due diligence. Well, we also, we're not a geophysics firm, and so we have to be pretty careful about how we approach something like sinkholes or voids. But it's, I would say that the more tools you bring out on a project, even if you don't use them, then it's not that big of a deal. I would bring GPR. We bring GPR on every single project that we do. We usually use it, but I would always err on the side of bringing GPR on just about every project.
If I could tack on that, just a quick moment. DGT, we're not geophysicists either. We're surveyors. As utility surveyors, we get asked quite often, can you find ledge underground? Can you find the voids? And our statement is that, well, we use GPR and other devices to find utilities. That's our expertise. We have subcontracted out our device to colleague geophysicists, but they've got to make the determination where to use it, not the utility mapper. The geophysicists do.
Absolutely. And if I can build on that, working for a geotechnical consultancy, I've got the advantage of having geotechs that I can pull into a project that are familiar with the local geology, and the potential root cause of the void is very important. If you're in an area of karst where you might have limestone 50 feet deep, GPR might not be the most appropriate tool. You might want to do a deeper investigation with electrical ERT. Or combine the GPR with some soil boring. So GPR is one tool in the toolbox, but when it comes to voids and sinkholes, you've got to be a little bit careful not to step too far into the geotech world.
Excellent. Well, great information, everybody. So I'd thank you all for sharing your insights and your real world experience. This has all been great participation and good back and forth with everybody. And thank you all for participating. So as we close out this webinar, I'd like to give another shout out to Kontur for sponsoring today's conversation. If you'd like to learn more about how Kontur's geophysical tools and software can support your operations, I'd be happy to connect with you after the webinar. Again, thanks for everybody for attending. We will share a recording and any follow-up resources shortly. And if you all have additional questions, feel free to reach out. So thanks again for everybody, and everybody have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.